Hey, welcome back to the channel. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while, and the idea is to show you guys some ways that I find water that I've never fished before. I'm sure a lot of you have seen my videos where I start out saying, never fished here before, I'm just gonna try it. You know, side of the road, hike in, whatever. And you say, well, Derek, how do you find these places? And you've heard me mention Google Earth and you know, but I've never really gotten into the details about it. So what I'm going to do is, number one, I'm going to break my own rule of not naming rivers. We're going to look at for examples. And these are just randomly picked. I have not fished where I'm going to show you guys. I don't know anything about it. I know it's just a blue line on a map. Okay, you want to go try fish it, good luck. I don't know if there's fish in these places. I know nothing about these. Where do I start? Where do I start? Well, you know, an odd thing has happened. Your tax money actually, sometimes, it's rare, sometimes your tax money goes to something that you find useful. Okay? As most of you know, I do a lot of trout fishing, and we're going to cover trout, and then we're going to cover some saltwater species also, how I find places. But y'all probably realize that a bulk of my trout fishing is in western North Carolina. And I'll show you how I track down creeks to fish and find information about those creeks that makes it worth fishing. In other words, makes it's possible. It's easy. Anyway, guys, thanks for coming, and let's get cracking. Let's go find some new places to fish. I'm looking at, let's say we're going to find a place to fish Saturday in western North Carolina. Okay, so go over here to their website, the North Carolina DNR website. We'll go over here to fishing. Fishing in North Carolina. Let's click on that. Where to fish? Well, that was our question. Not, hey, useful. Your tax money is working. Where to fish? Ooh, what is that? Fishing access map. I click on it. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that, guys. It gets better. Okay. Let's say I'm western North Carolina, in the mountains. I'm probably not going to catch fish over here in the coastal regions. Well, not mountain trout. So let's say I'm somewhere right around this area. I don't know. I'm just going to go look. Now, what's all this blue and brown and red? Well, actually, this is where the blue stands for wild trout waters. Now, you guys know me by now. I do not fish on purpose for stocked fish as a general rule. I like the wild fish. I like to get to places where maybe not a lot of people fish, and I just don't want the crowds. And I'm sorry, a lot of your stock fish, they're beat up. Their fins are chewed up. They're just not pretty. And I'll do another video about why I fish and why I fish the way I do, and it all has to do with beauty. Everything is about beauty. But anyway, so I'm looking for blue lines. Also looking for the red lines. See these couple of red lines here? Okay, those right there, those are catch and release fly fishing only waters. All right. But right now, I want to fish over here. So, and I've never fished over in this area except for a few places. That looks good. Now you'll notice this. See this brown line? That is a wild bait water. It's wild fish. They're not stocked, but you can use bait. And then you see this right here. Let's see this creek right here. Let's take a look at it real quick. I've never fished this, guys. I don't know. I am randomly picking something on a map. See that green line? That green line stands for those stocked waters. So they stock this creek up to about here. But the upper part of it is all wild. And there's a road going right to it. So I'll just double click on there. And this is, watch this, guys, it's cool. I'll click on the stream, and let's see. Nantahala Game Lands. This is Nantahala National Forest. Click on it. It says Buck Creek. So okay, I know where it is. I know it's right there. Okay, so I can just go on this map and I can just check out all these creeks, how to get to them, and right there, it's kind of neat. But I don't live in North Carolina. I don't live anywhere near North Carolina. Let's say that you live in Wyoming. Well, let's go see what Wyoming's DNR has. Let's see here. Wyoming, game and fish, fishing and boating. Places to fish and boat in Wyoming. Interactive Wyoming fishing guide. And there, voila, we have Wyoming. Oh, they got all sorts of little blue lines also. Well, let's take a look. You know, I've always wanted to fish, and guys, I've never been here. I know nothing about this area, okay? This is new to me. I have looked at this, okay? Because if I ever find myself in Du Bois, Wyoming, it'd be nice to know some places to fish. You never know. Go look at it, and you got, hey, there's blue lines. Let's take a look at one of these. Let's take a look at this one right here, okay? This is Warm Spring Creek. Let's click on it, see what it says. Ah, Big Warm Spring Creek, Section 2. Access note, portions of the stream flow across private land. That's good to know. I just don't want to get thrown in jail for trespassing. Frequently caught species: brook trout, rainbow trout, and Yellowstone cutthroat. Now, is that cool or what? Ah, so you got Wyoming, we've got North Carolina. Oh, let's just try this. Virginia, DNR. Hey, they got fishing. Let's see what they got. See what they got. Where to fish? Where to fish? Now I remember. Right here. Where to go trout fishing. Let's click on that. Oh, that looks familiar, doesn't it? For a minute there, I thought we were back in Wyoming. Aha! Look at that! Look at that! Look at that! Now I know nothing about these rivers, guys. This is. I'm not hot spotting. But I can't cover up all this. It's too much trouble. I know nothing about this. Again, that's what you do. Okay, hey, there's Laurel Fork. I have no idea if it even has fish in it. Let's click on it. Oh, Laurel Fork. It's got brook trout and brown trout. I might ought to go up there. I love me some brook trout and I love me some brown trout. So, guys, our tax dollars are actually being used for something useful. Who would have thought? So, okay, well, let's say at this point, I'm going to take this further, okay? Like, I don't know if that's public-private land. I don't know if there's access to it. I don't know. So, let's go back to Buck Creek in North Carolina. I use, and I have found this to be extremely useful, All Trails. All Trails is just a map, and I pay so much per year. It's not much. I guess it's $20, $25, $30 for the pro version. And with the pro version, I can download maps of trails onto my phone. And then if I'm out in the woods and I do not have cell phone coverage, because I got the map downloaded but still accessing GPS, I can sit there and look exactly where I am on the trail, or if I'm fishing, how far away, which direction the trail is. So I go ahead and get the pro version. And a lot of you guys know about this. Now with All Trails, I got roads. So there's Buck Creek, which we were looking at earlier. So we've got basically a road parallels it. This could be private land though, okay? But if we go up it and we want to fish, remember, we want to fish the wild water. Oh, wait, there's a trail. There is a trail. Now, it's far away, but I could put in here and fish up. And notice this trail, it's kind of close, but you never know. A lot of times you have a trail that's right beside a river, but it's a 60-foot incline. It's a 60-foot cliff. That doesn't really help you a whole lot. Well, here you can see it's a topo map. So you can see, hey, there's that doesn't look too bad. That's not going to be far above the river in this area right here. But you can just go through and take a look and say, is that worth fishing or not? Is it going to be too much trouble? All Trails is great. Also, this is a cool thing about All Trails is let's go up to another place where everyone knows about this. I've never fished this. I've been meaning to. I just never have gotten around to it. We're going to go to Hazel Creek. Everybody knows about Hazel Creek. I've never been there. But see, at Hazel Creek, it's showing the trail. And here's one thing I really like. If you're wondering, you're saying, well, is the trail really close to the water or not? Or how hard is it to get to? What I like to look for is right there. Got a stream crossing, man. There's a stream crossing. So the trail is right there at the creek, right? Also, if you look at the topo lines, this is pretty flat right here. This is very, very flat. So I could, get in here, wherever, and fish up to the bridge. And I know I can get on the trail and walk back down and back out. So this All Trails, it's giving you an indication of how good the access is. Because if the trail is, I gotta find one now. Okay, right here, case in point. All right, here we got the Hazel Creek Trail going up Hazel Creek. Now take a look at this right here, guys. Right here, those are 30-foot increments. 30, 60, 90, 120. That's 120 feet elevation. Plus, if you look over here, you got a legend that says 50 feet. So it's at 50, 100, 150, 200, 200. Probably 300 feet distance from the creek at 120 foot, 90 foot, 120 foot elevation difference. So in this section, you start fishing this, you're there. You're in there for the duration until it comes back down closer to it. But that keeps you from ending up, because you got an idea of what you're getting into. And that's the important thing. I know in this section, I can't just hop out of the creek, get on the trail. I've been in places where I did not know. And I'm sitting there looking up, and I'm going like, man, the trail is way... Like I see people walking. I go, oh, man, I hope that trail comes back to the river. This lets you know, hey, it's going to... Where it comes back, where it leaves it. So anyway... It comes in extremely handy. So this is, and using that information, I go, do I want to go try it? Do I want to try that creek? Where's the trail? How to get to it? And that's a wonderful thing. Another point is, okay, is this public water? In other words, is what property? Is it private property, or is it part of the Nantahala National Forest? So what I'll do, I'll just go to the Nantahala National Forest website from the USDA Forest Service, and I'll go there and I'll look down and I'll go, okay, there's a map. So let's go take a look at this map and see where we're at. See, I think it's right over here. Yeah, right here. Okay, right here is Buck Creek. Of course, you can't see it right there. Buck Creek. There's that road that follows it, and in that road, another road, and here's what we were looking at earlier, where the road leaves it. We see the green. That green, it is in Nantahala National Forest. And the fact that it has a trail, that's a good indication that you're in the national forest, or if this was the Smokies, it would be I know I was in the park. And yeah, so there's a trail right there. So now I know if it's legal for me to fish it, or do I have to get the landowner's permission? Which, good luck with that these days. But the final authority as to whose property you are on, that depends on, and I don't know if all states do this, but I do know South Carolina does. So let's say, for example, there's a river in Anderson County, South Carolina, and you want to find out who owns the land, or is it owned by the state? Like if it was in a state forest, but there is private property around, and you wanted to make absolute certain the way you access that, whatever it is, whether you're going to put your canoe in, you're going to wade fish, whatever you're going to do, this way you can tell exactly whose property it is. So I went up to the Anderson County tax assessor's office or tax treasurer's office. However, I think everyone's got this everywhere, but I'm not sure. But what you can do is, like, I'm going to go over here to Anderson County, and let's just pick a spot. And I'm just going to drill down on their tax map. And I don't know, your area, or whatever the area is, it may be different. It may be different. Well, let's say this lake. There's a lake right here, guys. I know nothing about this lake. It's called Anderson Reservoir. Huh. Anyway. Okay, see, look, it shows all the properties around this lake. You see that? All right, so this one right here, this owns most of it. I just clicked over on it. Cole Investment Properties owns it. Okay, that right there, Cole Investment previous owner. Okay, a company owns this. All right, that land around that part of the, see that part right there and highlighted. You know, you could go this right over here. That area right there. Let's see. Owner is Anderson Hampton G the third, whatever. Okay, well, you know, chances are all this is going to be private property. You know, this right here. And you can see right here the name of the person right there who owns this. And you can probably, and there's an address, you can contact them. You could actually, like, you say you wanted to fish this lake for some reason. Well, I'd send that guy a letter and say, hey, my name's Derek Porter. I would like to be able to put my canoe in that on your lakefront property, and yeah, I'll pay you $10, you know, or whatever, you know. Anyway, but this way, you know for a fact that it is surrounded by private property. You can go through here and find out exactly who owns, and let's say it was the city owned some property adjacent to this that was public, accessible. It would show over here. It would show over here, and you would know you could be able to access it. But anyway, guys, I hope this helps getting access to whatever water you want to fish, and make sure you're not trespassing and don't end up in jail. They'll probably just run you off. Okay, so that's about what I do for trout fishing. Well, here's the way I always start a salt trip. So let's say I'm going to do a South Florida trip, and I need to find places that I want to check out and fish, but I know nothing of the area. So guys, I'm going to take you to an area where I have never been. We're going to take a look at a canal and a couple of little ponds, and I know nothing about this. You can go look at them if you want. But anyway, so what I would do, this is how I did it, and this is the easiest thing in the world to do, because there's no elevation changes to worry about. Okay, I mean, and also, like, if I was going to check out something in the Everglades National Park, well, it's a national park. they got maps, they got recreation areas, they got trails, they got all of that is right there on their website. So that's an easy. That's just a nothing to it. You know, any of the other uh, nature preserves, and I mean they got a panther. They got a panther reserve for. But I don't think I want to go in there. But anyway, I'm going to go over here to, let's see, Marcos Island. We're not going to go to Marcos Island, though. But what we're going to do is, I checked this, I looked at this earlier so that I knew where I wanted to go. And I have never fished this. I know nothing about it. Okay, so what I do is I look around, and a matter of fact, I looked at this area right here, this lake, and I was like, man, there could be some snook and tarpon in there. But I come to find out, like I talked about earlier, checking the tax assessor's office, that is owned. That is owned by someone. Over here, all this is Collier Seminole State Park and part of another preserve. I don't know, I forgot. It's been a couple of years when I checked out. I was checking out some other places, but excuse me, but I do remember checking out that and finding out it was private. So let's say I'm looking up here and I go, look at that right there. You know what? Number one, there's no pictures like there is here. All right. Which means there's a good possibility nobody's ever been in here. So there's a good possibility there's some snook and tarpon in here that nobody fishes for. Okay, how do I get to it? Well, closest road. Let's go take a look at the closest road. And you'll notice that you can see the tunnels that link. These are all linked together, okay? So, and I'd like to try that and maybe go up here, and anyway, maybe go up here. So, obviously it crosses right here. So let's take a look. Okay. Oh, wait. We've got a very small canal paralleling the highway on both sides. It looks like. Again, hi guys, I have not been here. Yeah, it looks like it. Yep, it looks like it. Yeah, yeah. If I could put my boat in. Oh, here we go. Look, right here. Here we go. Bingo. This is it. I know legally I can park my car here. I know legally because of road easements, and this is part of the I forgot what preserve it is, but anyway, I can put my canoe in right here, and I could go up, and I could fish this. I could fish the canal itself, even though fly fishing in that is going to be very problematic. But there is a tunnel. You can tell the tunnel. And it took me a while to figure this out, guys. But I've been looking at a lot of mangrove swamp tunnels, whether in them or from Google Earth. But I can go up here and I can fish this, and I can fish that. Now, it ain't gonna take you long to fish that, but I'm saying you could do it if that's what you want to do. And then you could either go under the bridge, but if the bridge is too low, I'm pretty sure you could put in on this other side, and it's probably clear like that. You just can't see it because of the shade, because of the sun angle, but that's a good possibility. Oh, whoa, 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 right here, look. And I'm not positive, but I bet you anything you can park right here, throw your kayak canoe in right there. That looks like a place where people stand and fish from time to time. So you could fish this, go down the tunnel, go to this tunnel. That's definitely a tunnel, guys. It's definitely a tunnel. And you get to where you want to fish. You want to try it out. And guys, this is the kind of thing I did. And this would be like, okay, one morning would be, this area. Another morning would be another area. You know what I mean? Or at night. But I'm going to tell you what, guys. If I was going to do this, okay? If I was going to do this, I would go at low tide. Because if you can get in here at low tide, you can get out at high tide. But yeah, we'll talk about tides and other things later. But guys, you get the simplest thing in the world. Just take a look, find a place, put in, and go with it. Snooky Town. This is how I found Snooky Town. This is how I found all those places that you've seen me fish. If it's in a reserve or in a park or whatever, again, go to their website, get their maps. There's nothing to it. It really is. This is the simplest thing in the world. I have fished things like this. And there was nothing there. There wasn't even gar. I mean, I'm talking about nothing. And it looked beautiful from Google Earth. But there was nothing there. I went, I found it, marked it off the list. Guys, when I go down to Florida, it's like that. Or if I was going to go anywhere else in destination, if I was going to go to the Ozarks and go smallmouth fishing, I'd have me a list of places where I wanted to try. And I just go down that list. I'll just go down that list and I make notes. You know, and anyway, sometimes I find fish, sometimes I don't find fish. Y'all only see the videos where I found fish. Understand that, guys. I do not go down there and catch fish like gangbusters. You see the highlights. You see the times, the mornings or afternoons I found them and I caught them. But this is where I found, and guys, I've been down there enough times now. I've got a lot of little honey holes that don't hardly get fish. I never see anybody fishing them. And they're loaded. You've seen the videos. They're loaded with tarpon. And I mean, it's not the big tarpon, but honestly, I don't want to fight a fish for 45 minutes. I have no desire to do that at all. Period. Zero. Nada. Give me a 5-10 pound tarpon. 10 minutes, 12 minutes later, I'm releasing him and we're good to go. That's all I wanted. That's what I want to do. And that's why, and again, you'll notice, take a look. I'm picking my battles. Here, we could have 15, 20 mile an hour wind and it's not going to bother me in the slightest. Yeah, I'm not going to run into a 100-pound tarpon in there. I don't want to catch a 100-pound tarpon. I would be doing something else. So this is what I do. I pick my battles. I gotta put this. I like to fish a certain way. I like to fish small craft for the salt. I like to fish a small craft. I like to keep it tight, keep it in small areas, and it has worked out. I've had the time of my life. But anyway, this is how I find these spots. There is nothing to it. All you gotta do is make sure you're not trespassing on someone's property. and there's a place you can put your boat in. There's a lot of police places you can actually you've seen the videos of the guys at the bridges, and they're on foot. They ain't got a boat, and they're fishing it, and they're catching tarpon, they're catching snook. So this is how I find these places, and understand, it may be half of them, probably a little bit more than half of them are good. If I'm going to go into a place like this, I am not going to put my boat in at high tide. You say, why, Derek? Well, think about it. If I get down in there during high tide and then I fish for 4 hours and the water drops, I might not be able to get out without slogging through mud. I have no desire to find myself in the dark out there. I've mentioned it. Some of y'all have seen my preparedness video on going in the outdoors. My goal in life is to never use that stuff. I never want to use the emergency space blanket. I never want to use any of that survival stuff. I never want to have to build a fire to stay warm all night. I want to sleep in my tent or the hotel room or whatever. Okay, so you pick your battles. Watch your tides. Another thing, tides. There's not a tidal station right there. There's one about 10 miles away or so. So it's going to run, it'll run anywhere between, the tide there will run anywhere between 2 and 3 hours. And I don't know, again, I have not fished it, but I'm guessing. I'm getting a little better at this. I'm guessing 2 or 3 hours behind the nearest tide station. So you can go to tides near me. Why tides near me? Well, they got this really handy little map. So I got United States tides, and of course we're in Florida, right? And it gives us, hey, we got a map over here. We can double click it, and we can go like this, and we can go like, there's Marco Islands over there somewhere. Again, guys, I have not fished this. I hate to keep repeating myself, but okay, we were, okay, there's the road. This is roughly the area we were going to fish, right? So I gotta find the nearest tide stations. Well, it's either that one or that one. Let's take a look at this. I think this is Coon Key. If I can learn how to do it, y'all might not be able to see that. Okay, I'm gonna visit the tide station. Okay, here we go. And we got our tides. Now, I don't like this layout. So I know I want the Coon Key tide. So I go over here to tide forecast, okay, and I'm gonna go to, let's see, all right, for Coon Key on tide forecast, it shows me in a graph, and I like this a lot better. Now you're gonna notice something funny. Now if you're not from Florida, okay, if you're not from Florida, this tides look weird. You got a low, and you got a halfway high, a halfway low, and then the actual high. Okay, see that little bump? All right, that can mess you up. So let's say, for example, let's say I was going, let's say today. All right. Looking at, let's see here, at 6:17 a.m. I got a high tide. Well, you know what? I got not the low, but let's see, what's the difference? See, this is showing 1 foot. The next low is going to be, this is where the lows are close together. So today's a lucky day. This is fair. These are close enough not to mess you up. 6 inches, to the low. All right. So, if I were you, I was gonna go try a place like that we just looked at, and you didn't know what you were getting into. I would start, about 11 o'clock, right before dead low, because that by 6 you're going to have a high tide. It's going to rise 2.3 feet. If you can get into where you're fishing at 1 foot, you're definitely going to be able to get out at 3.3, right? So yeah, so what? But be aware of this, because on a different day, right here, you could start out, okay, you'd be pretty good here, starting at 9:25 a.m. High's going to be at 2:30. But if you're going to fish till dark, it's going to drop. It's going to drop way below at 10:14. So if it gets dark at 8:30, about right here, you're below where you were. Okay, so you might not be able to get out. So that, man, about, I don't know. There we go. That, man, about whatever time that is, you need to get out. You need to go. You need to get out. It's about 7 o'clock. 6 o'clock, you need to be out of there, because that thing's dropping like a rock, and that can get you stuck. You do not want to have that happen and spend the night out there with the alligators, the pythons, and what scares me the most, the mosquitoes. Okay, I think that about wraps that up. Another thing I do is I keep an Excel spreadsheet of when I do a float. okay, let's say I'm going to do a smallmouth river, like that one I did about a month and a half ago or whatever it was. That particular float, okay, after the float, as soon as I got home, I looked at the river gauges. Oh, by the way, we'll go into river gauges here in a minute. I looked at the river gauge and noticed, okay, at the closest gauge of that float that I did, I see what the cubic feet per second was. Now, let's say the water was so low, I scraped through and barely made it. Well, guess what? I'm going to take that number, bump it up a little bit, and say this is the minimum. Do not float it less than this much. Then there's another float on that same river downstream. First time I went down it, the river was running at 1400, and the problem was it dropped a short pull, dropped, short pull, dropped, and it was like we called it a treadmill. you couldn't stop. You literally could not. It was hard to stop the boat, get in an eddy, and stop the boat, because you would just went zoom, 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 just like that. And I flipped the boat, and I almost died. And so I've got a note in my Excel spreadsheet that says that river, if the gauge at this gauge is over 1,000 cubic feet per second, don't go. You will die. Okay? So what I do is, as I go along, I keep notes on what the conditions were like. Was it good? Was it too high? Was it too low? Was it just right? Yeah, sometimes I'll go and it was perfect. I mean, just, it's like, okay, this is it. This is what I want, Here, I'll show you an example. Obviously, the names have been changed to protect the innocent. Starts off, this section is river, and this is going to be when I float in my canoe. So on the river of no return, if I do the float, because see, there may be 5 or 6 floats I do on one river, okay, and they will be different at the same water levels. Some of them are easy, and some of them it's not enough, and some of it is too high. It just depends on the structure of the bottom, the amount of drop, and all that. So I learned this. So on the float, that's the spillway to Yahoo Street. At the wings gauge, maximum, I put 4,000. See, I've never floated that stretch higher than 4,000, and at 4,000 it was not bad at all. So I don't know what the max be. I probably wouldn't want to go higher, but I do know at 4,000 it was doable without being scary. I wasn't worried. I could anchor and not feel, paranoid. Well, no, I'm always paranoid. When you anchor in a river, paranoia will save your life. It's a healthy attitude. The Denial River, the collective soul float. Lockwood gauge, look at this. Minimum is somewhere, I'm guessing, 650 to 750. It was good at 650 to 750. I don't know if I would want to be much lower. And I put notes in here. Look, did not float through the entire shoals. Just pecked around the first 100 yards. Caught largemouth. Blob Dam had a massive spike. May have caused the mud. So when I fished that, it was muddy. The water wasn't bad as far as being too much water or too little water. It was just muddy. When I got home, I looked at the gauges. Well, the gauge up above was a certain dam had released, and when it released, it turned everything mud, and it hadn't rained in weeks. Turned it to mud. Talk about a waste of time. But see, now I know if I ever going to go back there, I'm going to check that upstream gauge, and I mean, on the way, I'll check that. This is, again, guys, have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. I drove there, got there, and it was almost unfishable because it was so muddy. I did manage a few largemouth, so I know there's largemouth in there, and there's supposed to be smallmouth, but that's, who cares? Okay, Fat Chick River. The float, the gauge. Matter of fact, I saw Twisted Sister in concert with Iron Maiden one time. It was good at 1,500. It's not a hard paddle up. This is one where I put in at a river, and I didn't float down it and took out downstream. I put in and took out where I put in. So I was paddling upstream to float a mild stretch, and then downstream a ways, and then paddle back up because I was by myself. So anyway, so look at that. Hey, at 1500, it was good. Not a hard paddle up. And I even went up above, paddled up above some shoals, and at 1500, I could paddle. If it had been 2000, I couldn't have paddled above those shoals. So I'm leaving notes. You know. Oh, this is one right here. Tsunami bomb. I love me some tsunami bomb. Anyway, tsunami bomb, the Judas Priest gauge. 90 minimum. I don't know what the maximum is, see? But I know that 90, we ran it at 90 and it was fine, but no lower. 90, that's the cutoff. Wading. I'm wading a river. I'm wading a trout stream. You ever get to your trout stream and the water's just too high? I think I was in a video of mine not too long ago, a month ago, where I was on the hunt for low water. All the big rivers were just high, and I just wasn't going to do it. So what I do is I put it up here, like right here, the Van Halen River, at the Iron Maiden gauge. 90 was too high. I'm guessing 60 would probably be my cutoff point. Anything below 60, let's go fish it. Now with wading, too low is not a problem. Well, unless it's dried up. But you get the idea. You know, the Pinkman River, look at that. Easy wading at 1,000. Maximum 13 is good at 1,000. 1,300 too high. Again, I got a question mark, maybe. Everglades. All right, Everglades. The C9876 canal off Highway 897, which none of those exist. At the Boston gauge, max 1,000, I'm not sure, because it was good at 3. And I was down there one time, and that gauge was over 2,000, and it was way too high. There was no tidal. I put in there, you know, 3 was nice with salt species in the canal near Allentown. Billy Joel. Yeah, at 600, 400, I could get into Snooky Town. Now I don't know if y'all seen my video, the Snooky Town video, but see, I'm putting notes in. Hey, but at that gauge at there, I could go get into Snooky Town pretty easy. So I know that if that gauge is running 3, I might not be able to get into Snooky Town. Let's see. Stones River at Rolling. The gauge is pink. I like some pink stuff when she does rock. Maximum 600. You know, at 350 to 250, could get into Snooky Town. See, these gauges are there's no gauges in between them, and these gauges are just for the Everglades. The amount of water flowing through the gauges. I mean, just flowing out. So at 350, I could get in. I could get into there. And Snook south of Benatar Ramp, the Snook south of Benatar Ramp were not in evidence. It was too much fresh water. I think it was too much fresh water, or it was so much water and it was so high they were back in the grass. You couldn't get to them. Not exactly sure, but you get the. Oh, look at this Charleston redfish. I'm going to do a tidal creek. Remember I told you about wind. Right here at Tidal Creek of Foo Fighter Creek. I started at low tide and fished to high tide. At the Prince gauge, rest in peace, brother. At the Prince gauge, you know, hey, look, it went from 1 foot low to 5.9 high. Yes, we do get 5, 6, 7 foot tide swings in South Carolina. Believe it or not, I know people sometimes are like, crazy. No, that's true. Look at it, the wind. I got the wind. 12 miles north-northeast. The time that it almost got me, when it was really too rough to be safe, it was coming from the southwest. But from the northeast, 12-mile-an-hour wind was no problem. See? And I forgot to put in there not to go to the south. Well, I know that. Anyway, good access. High at 5.9 at high tide, but it only flooded a little bit of the grass, so the fish couldn't really spread out like crazy. And that's letting me know that. Creek was west of Hendricks. Excuse me while I kiss the sky. Creek was west of Hendricks Ramp, just past the shrimp boats. See, I know exactly where that is. I got all my notes. I know what to expect. So, this Saturday, I'm sitting there looking. I spent all week looking at weather, looking at water gauges. We had this, hopefully Saturday, I'm going to do another smallmouth trip, but a long ways from home, about 3.5 hour drive. And there's a gauge upstream when I leave here, at 4 in the morning. I'm going to make sure that gauge doesn't have a spike. Because if that gauge has a spike, it's probably going to be muddy by the time I get there. So, you see what I'm saying? And I know the water level, in this. Again, guys, this is just obviously I took a few examples and changed the names. But, my list of river floats is about that. I mean, it's almost takes up the entire page. And then plus I got a whole lot more weighting and yeah. So, that has helped. That has saved my bacon so many times. I've had friends of mine. They'd call me and say, "Hey, Derek, let's do this river." Okay. I get to look and I say, no, it's too high. It's too high. Or it's too low. We're going to be scraping, or it's muddy. And I've also found turbidity. There's certain gauges, and we're going to go into gauges here in a second. Some of the gauges have a turbidity, which means how muddy it is. And I have learned that now this will apply to everything. That turbidity gets over 7. Don't go. I'm not going. I'm not going to. Well, yeah, you drive 3.5 hours. But some rivers have the turbidity gauge and some do not. But you know what? You use everything you can get your hands on. Let's go check out some water gauges. Usgs, that's United States Geological Survey. You can go on their website, type in the name of a river, or I can go over here and pick out, let's say, North Carolina. Okay. You can click on state, and here are all the river gauges. Let's say, let's see, Linville River near Nebo. Guys, I've never fished the Linville River. Don't know anything about it. I click on it, and I go to hydrograph, and boom. What do we got here? Okay. Looks like they had some rain. Now, this is discharge in cubic feet per second. I like that discharge because it tells me, number one, how big the flow is. Is it a small flow? Is it a big flow? That smallmouth river I went down the other week, it runs about 1,000 to 1,200 cubic feet per second. That's a pretty good sized river, right? Well, this one, look, just the other day before we got all the rain we had, it was running at 50. So it's a lot smaller river. All right. So I used that, and y'all saw it on the Excel spreadsheet where I keep notes of what size and all that. But a lot of these, they will have, well, for example, see, that's how you find it. This is how you go to that state, and you click on whichever one, and you can just hover over it, and it tells you, right? Okay. Here's a river. This one, though, has, check this out. Now, not all of them have all of these different gauges. Some of them only have feet height. Some of them may have only feet height and CFS, cubic feet per second. And they might have temperature, okay? But this one right here, this one has cubic feet per second, dissolved oxygen. It's got all sorts of stuff. But look at this, temperature. Why do you want to know the temperature, Derek? It's early spring. Some of our rivers have smallmouth in them. Smallmouth, they get really active and start spawning roughly at 60 degrees. So if it's 52 degrees, I'm probably not going to go smallmouth fish. I'll stick to the trout. That water temperature gets up 60, 62, 63, 64. I want to go smallmouth fishing. See? So I like that. And another really nice thing is turbidity. I mentioned this before. Okay, turbidity. You know, this is how dingy the water is. For me as a fly fisherman, now this is just me. I just have a hard time catching fish in dirty water, fly fish. Okay, I've done it. It's tough. You got to know the bottom. You can't read the water as well, especially if you're floating down something new. You don't know where the deep holes are because you can't see if it's deep or not. So and again, like I mentioned before, to me, the fishing, all of this is all about beauty. To me, that's the whole reason. And not, muddy water, it's not pretty. I just don't like it. I'll do something else. I'll go find a small trout stream up in the mountains that's running crystal clear. So anyway, turbidity, and I have found that if it's over 7, right now, this right here, I get that gauge to do right. It's at 11.3. I'm not going to fish that. I'm not going to do it. Not until it goes 7 or below. Preferably down to 5. And again, not all the rivers have the turbidity gauge. But I have found this out. Let's say you're going to fish a river that doesn't have the turbidity gauge, but a river right down the road does. And they probably run with each other. Not always. You can have a thunderstorm on one side of the mountain than you do on the other. I know that. But it helps you. Guys, this is all about tools to help you. Number one, like I think I mentioned it earlier, you know, staying safe, know where the trail is. And it's about you get to the river and you don't want to ever use plan B, plan C, and plan D. Still have them. Always have them. But you don't want to drive 3 hours in the place you had your heart set on to fish and it is muddy and high and too dangerous to put your boat in or to wait it. You know, the other week when I did that a month and a half ago, I was driving down the road and I put my camera outside to show the river and how high it was. And those lower rivers, those bigger rivers, they were too high to wade. I knew that on the drive up there. I already knew it. I already checked my gauges and I went, oh man, that's going to be way too high. And I directly went towards, you know, the smaller, higher elevation streams where that water drains faster. But you get the idea. Use this stuff. Use this USGS. Use All Trails. Use Google Earth. You know, the idea is just to make your, number one, it's more enjoyable. Make your fishing more enjoyable. Number two, increases your chance of success. And it increases your safety factor. You decided you want to take your canoe, kayak, stand-up paddleboard, whatever, and you want to float a river. You want to float a river from one spot to another. One put in to a takeout. Okay, a lot of factors go into this. If you're fishing, which that's all this website's about. So everything's going to be at a fishing thing. So anyway, let's get around to floating a river. For fishing, in my mind, and I'm not talking about a big wide river, I'm talking about just a river that's big enough to comfortably fish. I would suggest keep it between, especially when you first start out, keep it below 5 miles. You know, 4 miles, 4.5, 5 miles. That you can just take your time. You can fish hard. You know, sun starts getting low. 30 minutes of furious paddling and you're out of there, okay? When you start getting these 6 mile, 7, 8 mile floats, that's when you're going to want to pay attention. Okay, you know, take your GPS with you. You can easily find out when you've reached the halfway point. You know, plan your trip. Plan your trip. If it's a new float, you've never floated this stretch before, you don't know what you're going to get into. The other year, I went down a very small creek. I made a video about it. The video is called Climbing Trees for River Bass. I did not know what I was getting into. It was a 4 mile float, very short 4 mile float, and I got a late start. But I'm saying, all right, 4 miles, shoot, no problem. I hit blowdown after blowdown. I'm talking about blowdowns blocking the river. I had to get out, drag the boat over a blowdown, through a blowdown. I mean, it was, and there must have been about 10 major stop, get out, haul the boat over something, which takes time. So if I had decided to do a 10-mile float, it would have gotten tough by the time I got to the end of that, whether I was going to beat the sun going down or not. So when you don't know what you're getting into, number one, start early. Number two, pick, don't bite off more than you can chew. Again, I say be paranoid. So anyway, let's say you want to float a river. Obviously, the first thing to do, what I did, was I bought some paddling guides for the area you're going to fish. This right here, I'm going to show a small sample, a very small sample of the books on paddling routes, rivers, because we're going to just talk this part. Just going to talk about rivers. And again, guys, one of the biggest things is to if you don't know what you're getting into, pick a short stretch of river and start early, and bring a friend, because some of the stuff to get through, it would be a lot better to have 2 people than just one. Anyway, so how do we start? First, again, the books, but not every float's in a book. So these days, everything's online. So the first thing I'm going to do here is, I do a search. Let's go. I live in South Carolina, so I'm going to start South Carolina canoe trails. I did a search, and I found down here paddle SC, canoe, kayak, stand-up paddleboard. Click on it, start exploring. Now, there's probably about 5 or 7 just for South Carolina. Of these type websites that have canoe floats and stuff. Look around, compare them for the same float, see what one says versus what another one says. Let's see, start exploring. And we're going to look at a float that I've actually done. And it's not worth fishing. And I will never, ever, ever do it again. I got to find it. Okay, Inouye River, waterway details. We got a map. And we can see different floats along there, right? Nice, very nice. And you can, all these are just, put-ins. So right here, you're gonna have to portage something. It's probably a waterfall or something. But it gives you an idea of what you're getting into. And then on down here lower is a breakup of all of those floats. So for example, this one right here. But here's what you got. Look, length, 6.4 miles. Not too bad. It says duration 3.5 to 4 hours. That's for recreational kayakers. They're just paddling through. Skill level, class levels, class 2, class 3. There's no class 3 on there unless that water is really cooking high. That is not class 3. But anyway, it's got your access, how to get to it, and all that. So it's just and it'll take you, trip details. Guys, this is just obvious brain dead, no problem. You can find a place to float, and you can arrange float with some friends, leave a couple of cars at the takeout, so run the shuttle. This is pretty self-evident. The biggest thing is look out for, preferably go with at least talk to someone who has done that float if you can. Me, when I explored a lot of the rivers, when I really got into river fishing, I would look for places, and a lot of them I didn't know anything about. I knew no one who knew anything about them. So you can find all this information, but what you see online may not be reality. So what we're going to do here is we're going to switch gears, and I'm going to show how I found a float that it did not work out, but I was driven by it. I had driven over this stretch of water, over this bridge many times, and I got to thinking, man, I'd love to put my canoe in there. I'd love to put my canoe in here. So what I did was I get out the path tool and make sure it's in miles. I just went click, click, click. You see the miles adding up over here? Click and follow the contour. Just follow the contour roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want a good idea of how many miles it's going to be. Again, let me say that this, I would only do this now a day if, number one, I want to look for rapids. I want to look for landmarks. For example, take a look. I went under this highway. I know that under that highway is going to be like 2.25 miles or whatever it is. I know when we cross under that highway, hey, we've gone that much of the trip we've accomplished. And I just follow. Oh man, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, it's messing me up. Yeah, Derek, it didn't mess you up. You messed yourself up. Hey, I'm good at that. So get up here. Here, and right here is a road that comes down, and there is a public parking area and a public canoe takeout. Now a lot of this goes right through private land, but in the state of South Carolina, and check your states, a lot of states are different. In South Carolina, if it's a navigable waterway, in other words, you're floating it, it's navigable. There's no hard rule. Well, that is the hard rule. There is no technical definition of a navigable waterway in South Carolina. From what I've read from past court cases, it is, if you are floating it, you have proven by the fact that you're floating it, it's a navigable waterway, therefore considered a public highway. And in South Carolina, you can drop an anchor, you can get out and stand in the water, and I do believe you are legal up to the flood mark. Now, I'm not exactly what the flood mark is, because floods flood at very different levels, so I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, you can be on the bank and it will be perfectly fine. Now, the landowner may not think so. He may not be enlightened like me, you, and I are, but then you just get and just float on down and just avoid anything. But you're legal. You're legal to float down this river if you can float it. So let's take a look. We got 6.69 miles. That is a full day's fishing. Very full day's fishing. Me and a buddy got up early and we did it. And with very little fish holding water, let's just say it was a bust. It was a complete waste of time, a bust, a Saturday we will never get back. But that is how I have taken, if I didn't have a map of it, if I didn't know anything about it. Another thing here in South Carolina is if a road crosses a river, there is a road easement around it. So for so many feet, and you can remember the tax map. Remember the tax map? You can see this on the tax maps. I should have showed y'all that. But you have a right to put in from that road into the river, all over South Carolina. Now again, the landowner may not agree, but that's the law. And so I just looked for a place downstream where I knew there was a takeout, either a road or, in this case, it happened to be a historic site. So that is the way that I have done river floats when I had no guide. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was getting into. So anyway, guys, I hope that helps you guys. And again, if it's something you've never done, be aware. There may be blowdowns that are not talked about in the book. You may read a book or go online and see something that says, oh yeah, it's very wide and clear and all this, and it's great. Well, a couple of 3 years go by and there's been some really bad storms, and there may be some really major river obstructions. So now in some of these rivers, there are people, and I have known some and met some, that some of the rivers in their area, first thing they do in the spring is they get the chainsaw and the John boat and they go down and they clear it. So, but you don't know if that's happened or not. And some of these, the Forest Service, if it's going through a Forest Service or whatever, they will clear it. So be aware of, you may be doing some tree climbing. Like this. There we go, another log jam. Oh man, I ain't gonna do much fishing on this trip. Here goes nothing. Oh, goodness. What you want to bet that's blocked around there? Oh, man. Right there. Right there. Not too bad. This is editing, Derek. Guys, I hope y'all got some useful information out of this. I'm sure there are probably better tools. There's probably better tide charts, better whatever. This is just what I have found useful. I haven't tried everything. But guys, I hope you got some use out of this. And hey, please, if you like the content, please like and subscribe. It really helps out. And thanks for coming along. And hope to see you out there on the river sometime when it's not high and muddy. Trick is gonna be getting me over there.